Good morning. And we're live. All right. Good morning. We are here with my mentor, friend, and an extraordinary world business leader, Blaine Bartlett. Learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM. If you haven't checked out the Mindset Mastermind, you're missing out. Anyway, Blaine, this is one of those circumstances that I'm a little bit worried because Jim McKelvey is going to be your new best friend, and then he'll never talk to me again. But he's an incredible entrepreneur, co-founder of Square, founder of Invisibly, and he has a new book, which is right up your alley, Blaine, The Innovation Stack, building an unbeatable business, one crazy idea at a time, which, believe it or not, Square is such a household name today that at one time, Jim, it was a crazy idea.
Yeah, we had no idea it was going to work this well.
Yeah. That's like my esports business. I never had an idea that it would work. I thought I would lose all my money. Was that ever a thought in your head when you come up with these crazy ideas and put your money behind it, that you go to your wife and say, hey, I'm going for this, but I'm really not sure it's going to work?
Look, if you're doing something that hasn't been done before, there's no guarantee. And that's one of the big points I make in the book, which is that there's a difference between following a formula that has worked for years that other people have already proven and doing something unproven that might not work. And the whole book is basically about that line between those two worlds, because things work differently in a world where you can't copy.
Yeah. Now, see, that's the piece that I'm really fascinated about talking with you about, because far too often I find that, entrepreneurs, they'll have some great ideas, but then they get stuck on the how. And the how typically will reference back to what somebody else done that got them where they ended up. And you don't want to end up where they ended up. So I was a real early adopter of Square. I got this little thing. I'm going, God, that is such a cool idea.
Thank you.
I still use it, quite frankly.
Do you know that it doesn't work as well as it could?
Tell me.
The Square reader is too small for a credit card to go through without a little bit of practice. Like, you got to practice using it. Yep. And when I was designing the thing, I actually made two versions, one that was long and easy to use, and one that was short and kind of difficult to use. And we shipped the short one. And part of the reason was because when I used the short one in demos, people got obsessed with it because it was just a little bit challenging. So, yeah.
It's funny. I thought you used the shorter one because it was actually a Square and it was just good branding and marketing.
No, actually, the original name of the company was Squirrel. And so it was originally shaped as an acorn. But we couldn't use Squirrel because there was another company that made a point of sale system that was called Squirrel. So at the last minute, we had to switch to Square. So, but if you actually take apart the early electronics, it looks exactly like an acorn. The spring, the reed head, like it was designed to fit in an acorn shell.
And adaptability is one thing, obviously, with consumer feedback. Even though we may have better solutions, many times, and this happens in the food industry all the time, that the founders, have this great idea of what something should taste like or look like, and then the consumer says, no, I like this better. And even though the original chef is like, wait a second, that's so crappy. Why would you like that one better? In the Innovation Stack, the book, you talk about another issue, though, which is being impenetrable. Sustainable and impenetrable. Why is that so important at the beginning of when you're building a company like Square? Which is
so it turns out in these two worlds, one where you copy and one where you don't. There's this weird thing that happens if you make something that works without having to copy all the parts from somebody else. You end up with this thing I call the Innovation Stack, and it was the thing that protected Square from attack by Amazon. And the amazing thing about Square in its early days was that Amazon copied our product, undercut our price. And when they do that to a startup, Amazon wins, period. It was 100% true back in 2014 when Amazon did it to us. But Amazon didn't beat Square. As a matter of fact, a year later, Amazon was actually shipping those little Square readers to all their soon-to-be former customers because they just gave up. And although, we were really happy that we won, we couldn't explain what happened. So this is why I went on a basically 2-year research quest to try to find other companies that it had similar experiences where some magical force protected us from Amazon. I didn't know what it was. Well, it turns out that this thing I called the innovation stack, and it's not just something that happened to Square. It happened to all these companies, and the only commonality that I found between these firms that I studied was that all of them began without a model to copy, which means they had to invent it themselves. And the way they did that is just fundamentally different from the way you build a normal business. Like if you want to start, a consulting business, boy, I mean, David, I'd copy you. Like if I wanted to be a consultant, man, like you're like a role model for this stuff. I just checked out your website and you got it's cool speaker photos and pick you back of a limo doing a cell phone. It's like, oh yeah, this guy's got a badass model. Like, so if I was going to be a consultant today, I would totally copy everything you've done. And then, maybe I'll innovate a little bit, but man, it's a known formula. You got the formula. I would just copy it. But if I had to do something that wasn't already known, then I'm in this weird world. And that's what my book's about.
That's now you're right now, looking at some stuff around data and data protection, privacy. And I want to just pivot a little bit here because partly what I hear when you say this little gap in between two worlds, the thing that protected Square was this idea that nobody had and it couldn't be replicated in the sense that nobody knows how to do it. To me, that speaks to the soul of the business. There was a book years ago called The Soul of the Machine. It was about IBM, but the soul of the business, that non-replicatable advantage. And oftentimes it's invisible. And data represents that in some ways to me, because I don't know what I bring to the table from a data perspective, but I'll tell you, Google and Amazon, I'm sure, figured out how to leverage what I bring to the table in terms of their marketing to me and how they use my data. How do you protect and how do you actually get in front of, and this is, I think, what your next venture is about here. How do you actually get in front of that, as a consumer? How do I own my own data in order to leverage it?
Blaine, we don't know yet. We're still working this out. I mean, I would love to sit here and go, I got it. Yeah. It's been 3 years. We cracked code. Like we've got parts of it working in the lab. We've got a little bit of it working in the wild. This is a big problem. And I think it's a big problem for everybody because look, if something's free, then you're the product being sold. And that's just basically how the economics of Google and Facebook and these large platforms work. And essentially what you're doing as a consumer is you're trading your time, which is the thing we always run out of, right? Ultimately, we run out of time. We don't run out of money usually. But that time is now being sold on a marketplace that you have no participation, you have no input in. And your eyeballs are incredibly cheap. You would be offended at how cheap your attention is on some of those platforms. And we just think that an economic model where people start to take control is going to be better. And look, I'm an economist by training, so I won't spare you all the geeky equations. But the bottom line is people should have control about how their eyeballs are bought and sold, just as they should have control about how their money is bought and sold. And dude, if you think everything should be free, then I would say, okay, let's imagine a world where food is free. Okay, let's say the government passes, one more stimulus package and they say, oh, we're going to make food free for all Americans. And you say, great, I'm going to go to a really great restaurant today. No, you're not. That place just closed down because they can't make any money. Look, it takes money and effort and quality to produce. Well, look what we're doing right now. You guys are going to edit this. You spend all this time. Like this costs money to produce quality content. And then all the crap that I say that's inane, you're going to have to edit that out. If you want to produce a quality product, you need to be able to get paid for that quality product. And right now, the economic model that content lives with is this one where, we only sell our eyeballs in this bulk, inefficient, per second way that doesn't value our time. And we're trying to change it. It doesn't work yet. It doesn't work yet, but we're still working on it.
Jim, it's amazing because Blaine and I sit usually sipping tequila, talking about time and quantum physics. So you'll have to join us sometime because this conversation is.
I'd love to. This is super fun. This is the earliest I've woken up in years.
I was gonna say I literally looked at my notes this morning. I wake up at 4 every day, but I'm like, is Jim actually gonna come on at 5:15? This is incredible. But moreover, number one of the things that Blaine and I talk about is money's a renewable resource, right? You will run out of money, but it's a renewable resource. Time's not renewable resource. But one of the things that's interesting with your new venture to me, as I'm a student of stuff, and I know Ubiquity. I ran the world's first smartphone division at Samsung, the PC-E phone, the Windows CE device, too early, too big, and too expensive, they said in '99. But
I'm rocking Samsung, man. Still the one with a microphone jack.
You got it. But one of the things that I think would be interesting to look at for your venture is what I call conversion. It's Dr. Jacobs. When I was working with Qualcomm, he said, "Dave, what business am I in?" I said, "Oh, you're in the chip business, CDMA." He said, "No, I own the customer." And what makes your business so valuable, a market cap of over $100 billion, is Square owns the customer. I don't even think it's the data that's so, because it's a race to the bottom for data today, because there's billions of people that'll be sold, resold, and resold. But
everybody thinks their data is so precious. It's like, it's data. You can have a copy. I can have a copy. It's not that valuable. It actually gets back to what Blaine was saying, which is like, what do you know that the other guy doesn't? Like, what insights do you have about how people behave or what they're doing or what they want that the other people haven't figured out yet?
Right, because then they're a community, one, and then two, you can convert them, right? See, the adaptability of what you do, your genius, the higher frequency that your business is at, is when you own a customer, when you have a community, regardless of the data can be shared everywhere, right? You could have all of my high-end coaching clients, the top 500 CEOs in the world, and if you don't have a relationship or credibility and emotional attachment with them, it's valueless. And so converting your community gives you sustainability, and where you see the people who have business after business after business, exit after exit, it's because that community is convertible. Do you see that conversion? Because at No Better Business and Square, your database, your community is so convertible to so many different things because the credibility you have with finance and the emotional attachment you have with the efficiency that you created.
So a lot of maintaining that credibility, and I agree with everything you've said, but one of the interesting things is how much we don't do with what we have. We have massive amounts of insight, and we don't do things like that. We don't front run trades. We don't, like, all this stuff that you can do, we don't do. A great example was we had all this information on people who were or underbanked, their Cash App users, and we never touched it. We were like, okay, this is really important, but we never did anything. And then, of course, we had this pandemic, and the government needed to get cash into people's hands. And a lot of these people didn't have bank accounts. They didn't have, proper files at the IRS, but they needed the cash because these were the people that were hurting the most during the pandemic. And Square got, I can't tell you the exact number, but it was millions of people enabled to receive money. And that was one of those things. It's like, oh, well, we could be doing, cash advances and all sorts of other stuff. We chose not to do a lot of that stuff. But then when it became necessary, we had the rails. And I think part of what's maintained the trust of the consumers at Square is that, we've always been keeping stuff back. Like we could have charged more from the first day. I think we still could. And we are try to be very respectful of our customers.
Yeah. The idea of being, and David's heard me talk about this, he and I talk about this quite a bit, actually, a business as a center of distribution rather than as a profit center, but as a center of distribution where things come to and flow through. And that flow through becomes, you see it in nature everywhere, a healthy, thriving ecosystem. Nothing is a center of accumulation. Everything is a center of distribution. And data is part of that. Where it gets aggregated and collected, things start to get really funky. Business is that way too, when the whole focus is on aggregating capital rather than distributing capital in an intentionally mindful way. I was struck, and this is where all of this rambling goes to, Jim. You were collecting all of this information at Square, but you weren't leveraging it in the traditional sense. And I'm curious why that would have been. I'm putting it in the framework of being a center of distribution and credibility as a part of that. So what was some of the thinking that went into that for you?
Well, like, you don't want to be a hoarder. That's a bad reality show, right? You don't want to just sit there and amass, because first of all, it gets creepy. Secondly, you start asking the wrong questions, which is like, what can we do with the things that we have? Which I think is the wrong question. And the right question is, what are the problems that our customers have that we can solve? And then you look at your toolbox and you go, oh, wait a second, I happen to know these things and maybe I could build something. So I'll give you an example. When we did Square Capital, that was a situation where we had this fantastic need in our customer base because the small business lending was just destroyed. About 5 or 6 years ago, the way they set up the interest rates and stuff, like it wiped out all banks' incentives to lend. So small business capital dried up. And these are our customers, and they're starving to death. And we're watching our most vigorous growing customers run out of money. And we're like, well, wait a second, can we fix this problem? It's like, hey, wait a second, we have this payment data, so we can see how in real time they're doing. Well, that's a great base to build a lending business. Now, did we know how to build a lending business? No. Do we have the licenses? No. But you figure all that stuff out. But it was driven by a need. But if you sit there and look at the data, you end up with really creepy stuff. And I think it's just the wrong way to come to a new product.
Yeah, I think, just to finish up, the innovation stack is applicable not just to technology. As I had looked through this and, you see the surface level of Dave Meltzer consulting or speaking or whatever it is, but learn from Gary Vaynerchuk, right? It's built on a lot of innovation that is not apparent to all. And, it's not what it seems to be. That's why I have in my signature of my email, right? Res ipsa loquitur, that which appears as it is. I think innovation stack can be the actual shield that everyone on the surface says, oh, I can compete with them. And then when they spend millions of dollars to try or raise millions of dollars to try, they start realizing the depth of an innovation stack and the strategy, complexity, robustness, all the different ventures. So, I'm going to reread Innovation Stack to make sure that I implement it into the less obsequious businesses that other people like, oh, I can speak like David Meltzer. Little do they know there's an innovation stack behind even my speaking.
Yeah, the surface stuff is never what protects you. It's the 20 things that you're doing for reasons that are your own that other people don't understand. Right.
The Sir Speedy system that Dick McDonald with his brother, right? Guy is, Ray Kroc took advantage of it, but he owned the innovation stack behind, the greatest fast food company that changed the world in a variety of different ways. So I look forward to doing more. I think you're coming on my TV show with Blaine as well, with Bloomberg. Yep. We appreciate you getting up early, and you're just an amazing entrepreneur, a legend in the business. Thank you for joining us so early.
Thank you, guys. This was such an honor and so much fun. And let's do it again.
Yeah,
hey, you got it. We're going to be talking. And like David said, I'm going to switch allegiances here. You're going to be my new best friend.
I told you.
You're too better. You're too well dressed.
Yeah, he looks so good.
What can I say?
When he was our age, he didn't look so good in the mornings. So
that's true.
He's getting better. Innovation Stack. Check it out on Amazon, obviously, anywhere the books are sold. Thanks so much, Jim McKelvey, co-founder of Square and Invisibly. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Have a good morning. He's awesome.
Oh, that's great.
Way to start,
I love that company. I mentioned earlier.
Behind every great company is a guy like Jim McKelvey.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's bring on Naftali. Let's bring on Naftali here. He has a quick question for us, and then we'll get to my favorite coaching clients that are waiting in the green room as well. We'll get our takeaways for the day. I'm just so satisfied with that last interview. I feel sorry for Natalie. I hope I can bring up some good information for him. Naftali's the CEO of JTech Summit, a summit for starting and early stages business, launching those. Naftali, you see a lot of deals early on, probably the next Square. Give me just a quick background and your question for Blaine and I.
Sure. First, I want to say good morning, David. Good morning, Blaine. Thanks for having me, guys, on the show. I'm an American, but I lived in Israel for many years. So in Israel, I got involved in the Israeli startup ecosystem where, I'm sure you guys know about, we have, startups opening every day. I think the numbers are, there's a startup for 1 in every 1,400 people. And that's the thing that we have a lot of exits. Last year we had, I think, about 25 exits or over $100 million, in a tiny little country. So we help, I help bring the startups, a lot of times they're these small startups. I bring them to investors and to partners, strategic partners, companies that can deal with them and help them grow and things like that. In addition, I also arrange a podcast. We have this, Shark Tank style, where the founder pitches to a couple of investors, but we're a lot more friendly than that. We try to be nice to them without roughing them up. And that's, it brings them both publicity, and we're trying, our real goal is to give quality content, where we help people learn more about investing from smart investors, and founders learn how to pitch. They want to hear what the investors are going to tell them when they come to pitch to them.
You got to put them on my TV show, 2-Minute Drill. They can win $50,000 in cash and prizes for season 2 launches June 18th on Bloomberg and Amazon. So that's a good lead in. How can we help you? What question you have for us?
Yeah, so there's one question that the investors, we don't usually ask it on the show, but this is what everyone is thinking about always. And I want to ask you what your opinion is. So, they're often, we take early stage startups, but they're not right in the beginning. They already have traction. These are people that put together a team. They have a great idea, a POC, sometimes some business already, right? But what we always wonder about is, can this guy really take this company that's, let's say they're going at a $10 million valuation. Can he run a corporation with 600 employees, and take it to an IPO or things like that? So there are two sides to the question. I mean, first of all, for the investors, and everyone looking at it like, can we give it to him? On the other hand, if they hire a CEO, they won't have the same passion. Often the founders, they're the ones that are really, really passionate about the idea. And the other question is when you talk to the founder, like, which way should we be guiding him? Should we be telling him, listen, it's really time to bring in a CEO as passionate as you are. You're not going to make it. And for them themselves, they have to decide. They have to come to a point and decide who's going to be taking this company to the next level. And I want to ask you how you feel, meaning have you felt that impedes a lot of startups, when they get to a certain stage that the founders aren't capable of taking it further? Or do you feel it's often worthwhile to have the person that's the most passionate about the company?
Blaine, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll just take a real quick stab at this. Yeah, I think there's two ways to look at that, Natalie. One is, Jim Collins years ago, said, get the right person in the right bus in the right seat. That applies to the founder as well in a startup situation. They will be in the right seat initially because it is their baby, and it's they're running the bus really. But there will be a time where skill sets oftentimes are mismatched, and that's a shift from bringing it to visibility to bringing it to viability. And that's a big difference. And there's a way, I think, to do the dance where the founder can be part and parcel of the process. But one of the things that I found that works particularly well, if the founder is open to it, is getting some coaching. And not how it would be thought of in a traditional sense, but coaching that applies to the mindset of moving from visibility to viability. What do I need to be paying attention to that I'm not paying attention to today? And then getting rid of my ego so that my ego can be supplanted by bringing in talent.
Yeah,
it doesn't prove a barrier to me.
That's genius advice. And just to complement that, I say two things, and I do this a lot with startups, obviously. So the one is always evaluate skills, knowledge, and then particularly desire of a startup CEO. Because the only thing that's going to make it successful is the ability that they have, that they must be what they can be. But managing the expectations from the beginning about and looking for, because there's no one on earth that is capable when they are a CEO of a startup of running $1 billion company or a $10 billion company or a $100 billion company like Square. You're just not there yet. In fact, when I was CEO of Samsung's phone division, I got let go. I used to tell people I semi-retired and they paid me to let go. So, if you're going to get fired, have them pay you to leave. But that's one lesson I learned. But more importantly, I wasn't capable of running at 30 years old, the second largest manufacturer of phones in the world, of a public entity in the international realm. Blaine is, at his age and experience, he could handle it. But at 30 years old, after being in the Silicon Valley, I was hired as I was an executive to sell, right? I was selling the company, but I wasn't capable. So here's the secret sauce. Skills, knowledge, desire is what you look for at the beginning, but they have to have three things as it evolves to billions of dollars. One, an open mind. An open-minded CEO will, because they care so much about the company, get help, whatever that means. Step down, step up, step out. Two, an open heart, right? That open heart's going to allow them to maintain and accelerate the desire that they have. And then I always say open hands, an abundant attitude. If that CEO does not have open heart, open hands, and an open heart, then they won't grow with the company. Scarcity will take over. Even though they may have the desire that they must be what they can be, they may have the skills and the knowledge to start it out and grow it to 30 million, because there's those jumps, right? 30 million to 100 million, 100 million to 300 million, 300 million to a billion and above. And they're different skill sets that happen. Can you learn them? Look, Zuckerberg learned it. You know, he's hyper intelligent, but he has an open mind, an open heart, and open hands. And so looking forward to that. And look, Steve Jobs, who's one of, the great CEOs, he left, came back, et cetera, because he has an open mind, open heart, and open hands, and he allowed everything to evolve. So I got to jump to my coaching client.
I'm going to throw a real quick comment here. One of the things you're looking at, Natalie, is a leader. How does a leader lead? Have them begin to understand that leadership is about co-creating coordinated movement. That simple positioning, co-creating coordinated movement, you can unbundle all kinds of conversations with a founder about what does it mean to actually co-create coordinated movement in the system.
You can learn about Naftali at jtechstartups.com. Please feed me some great companies for my TV show. We're taking applications for season 3. Naftali, if you need anything else, just email me, david@dmeltzer.com. We'd be happy to help you. Or don't forget the learn.blaine.bartlett/LMM. Perfect for your leaders, the mindset mastermind that he does. Thanks for joining up, Natalie.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
You bet. Good luck with it.
He does. There's so much talent in Israel and so much great technology there.
It really is. Yeah, I've got a couple of folks in the mastermind, that are startup.
Yeah, real quick. Takeaway for the day, my friend.
The gap. Well, there's actually two things. I mean, I loved your little notion about open heart, open mind, open hand. I mean, and it speaks to how do I actually navigate that space between what's known and what's not known. I mean, and that's what basically both of our guests today were referencing here, because a leader, a CEO, a founder moving into that space about, I don't know how the hell how do I go from, visibility to viability. And it is that chasm, that gap, and being willing to ask for help. I mean, it kind of comes back down to one of the things that you consistently are focused on. Ask for help. Ask for what you want. There's nothing wrong with asking.
You nailed it. Know your what, your who, your how, your now, and your why. You nailed it. My takeaway for the day is community. I think it's so interesting that people get caught in the weeds, and I love the innovation stack as an impenetrable defense in a strategy for building a business that may not look or appear to have any innovation in it at all. Take one of the oldest professions that you and I are in, whether it's book writing, speaking, or coaching, been around, you were sitting there when you were in your 20s and there was some guy your age who was doing exactly what you're doing and I'm doing today. So this is as old as the gas lamp. And yet there's an innovation stack behind what we do. And I think that community is what is so interesting, because it provides ubiquity, it provides invulnerability, in monetization by conversion of providing the best service and value to the community, which just grows the community. Qualcomm could sell their customers insurance. That's how much they own the customer. So own the customer, be kind to your future self, do good deeds, provide more value than you're asking for, and you will be fine in the world of business. Mr. Blaine Bartlett, my mentor, my friend, my family, learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM, the mindset mastermind. He is the master. And if anyone enjoys the things that I speak about, I'm just transcoding the wisdom of such great mentors of Blaine Bartlett. So thanks for joining me, Blaine.
Oh, always my pleasure. And until next time, hey, enjoy Cabo.
Thanks for waking up early. I appreciate you.
You bet. Okay.
Bye-bye. All right. Now we're ready. right at 5:45. I'm a little bit late on time. I'm a time freak, but time is not a renewable resource, but money is. The Next Level University dynamic duo, Kevin and Alan. Welcome to Office Hours. Let's rock and roll. I'm going to give a little bit of extra time here, so don't be fearful, but let's rock and roll. Let's show people how a coaching session is supposed to be.
Boom. Well, thank you so much for having us again, Dave. We love you. We appreciate you. All right. Number one question. I know that you've mentioned in the past having trouble transcoding certain messages. So how do you effectively communicate your unconscious competencies?
Practice, right? I mean, one of the advantages that I've had, especially during the pandemic, is the repetitive nature of communication, meaning there's probably 30 different people that I'm communicating with, the different variances of that transcoded quantum messages that I have. And so each time that I explain or try to either mentor, coach, or teach 3 different skill sets, mentoring is bringing the best out of what I've experienced. Coaching is to bring the best out of you. And then teaching is to be able, which is to me the most difficult because it takes patience, something that I'm practicing, not quantum in my nature, by the way. It takes patience to teach because you have to explain. And you have to not only explain, you have to be able to summarize, not only summarize, but you have to make sure that there's a mutual accord, that's some sort of reciprocation of your knowledge. And that takes time, right? It's easy to get on stage for an hour and just, barf all over everyone, drink through a fire hose and hope they can keep up with the notes. But when you're teaching, now you have to make sure the questions are answered, the explanation of what you said is actually heard.
What's a good indication? So last night, Alan and I got to speak at Toastmasters about speaking, and that was a whole thing, but it made me realize that we might be forgetting the things that got us to where we are, right? So what is a good indication of somebody understanding your new level of transcoding? And how do you know you're making progress?
Well, number one, have them explain it back to you, right? Okay. So what do you hear? That's the easiest way. And then I just make I know I make progress by the people who hear it. There's all, it's such, especially speaking, your ego gets so far out of whack when you speak. I can speak in front of 20,000 people or 1,000 people, and there could be 50 people line up, and the 50th person, lines up for an hour just to tell you, right? Just to tell you, oh my God, that changed my life. I just want to say thank you. You don't want a book? No. I go, you waited an hour just to thank me? And my ego says, oh my gosh, that must be a remarkable speech. Oh, you're the best speaker. You're Tony Robbins, man. You are rocking. No, I'm not Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is a remarkable speaker. He has so much more practice than I do. And he is at a different level than I am. And that's the truth. Because if Tony Robbins spoke and there was 20,000 people, there would be 5,000 people waiting in line if they could, right? And yet our ego tells us because, there's 50 that the other, 19,950 people felt the same way about those 50. They don't. Just like when Tony Robbins speaks, the other 15,000 people feel the same way as those 5,000 that line up. No, they don't, or they would have lined up. Right. And so you have to keep on building and saying, I can get better, because there's no way when you put out a video or you speak or you write a book that everyone's on that frequency. What you want to do is increase the signals, widen the spectrum, and clarify your message. And those are the 3 things that will continue to adapt a bigger and bigger community and aggregate upon itself. The good news is we have such access today that I can pop up 90 videos to get 40,000 people, then 50,000 people. I use my YouTube as my best example. It took me so long to get to 10,000 subscribers. I got 7,500 subscribers last month. Why? Because my frequency has strengthened, my spectrum has widened, and my message has been clarified. And you guys have known me long enough. If you watch this stuff today, the stuff before was good, but the stuff today is better.
Right.
It's stronger, wider, and clearer.
Can you give us a pragmatic example of making your spectrum wider and clearer? Like what's an example of a shift you personally made, either on stage? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, the spectrum is understanding the community. And so understanding what resonates. So when I first started, I had a deal with Vistage. I thought, oh, perfect place for me. And I wish I, wasn't in COVID and had the opportunity. YPO, Vistage, these groups are built for the spectrum I wanted. But I was not clear on what they were listening for. I wanted them to listen to me, not what they were listening for. So if you want to broaden your spectrum, know what the spectrum is listening for. Don't worry if they're listening to you. And then as far as clarifying the message, that's where practice comes in involved. And you can see the phrases that you use, the stories that you tell, the lessons that you teach, which ones and how to explain them so it clearly defines what you do. The story about my father's jacket has changed over the last 4 years. It's much stronger, it's specific to the spectrum, and it's much clearer, and it emotionally connects much better than when I first started telling it.
Do you believe that it more accurately represents the authentic truth, and that's why it's more powerful?
Some of it is like, there's certain things I talk about that I didn't remember, and the more like I'm exploring, I get my own ego out of the way, the interference for, the hurtful things. I had an interview with Sugar Ray Leonard talking about, being abused as a child. I never, talked about it before, but because he opened up what had happened to him, I opened up what had happened to me. I would say it varies. See, as you guys know, I train a lot of guys to speak, and women, people to speak. And it's so interesting because I like knowing the lessons in the topic of the story, because my memory is not that good. And so the story that I tell is always different. And sometimes I think the story that I tell is a little bit in the gray area. It's a little bit, for fun or for whatever reason. I didn't explicitly explain the facts. I talk about, 6 kids that live with me and my single mom. And the truth is 2 of them were my stepbrothers that had to live with us because their mom was crazy and my mom's such a good person, right? That, as a single mom, she's basically raising these 6 kids. 2 aren't even hers. But the story is the story. And, does it change the story, whether I explain in detail that, the 2 older brothers that I had, the doctor, were Ivy Leaguers, I mean, geniuses as well, but yet does it make a difference? Or, variance? It's so funny because my family, who knows a lot of like the exact things that happen, their memories are different than mine.
Yeah.
And and the ones that are black and white, like went to Harvard, they'll question it like, well, was that your $100 million? Was that in the bank or on paper, David? You should tell everyone it's on paper. And I literally, I try to tell that. I tell the story. Most people know, I'd say I lost over $100 million on paper, right? I own real estate or golf courses. They get it. But the truth is, in telling the story, sometimes you can diminish your story and your spectrum and the strength and the clarity by getting into too much detail and saying, well, my mom raised 6 kids, 4 of them were hers, 2 of them were stepkids that she inherited, right? She inherited.
Yeah.
You're like, dude, stop already. What's the lesson?
Right. Right. Appreciate that, Dave. That Kevin and I obviously are focused on oratory and being strong communicators and transcoding and transferring energy to help people change their life. And a lot of people don't understand that piece. And it's like my friends as well will say, well, you left this out or you didn't say this. And in my head, it's like, is there even one objective truth? This is the way I experienced it. And that's a question I have written down as well. David, is there one objective truth that we're all trying to get closer to, or is truth a perspective? What's your take on that?
Love is truth. As far as factual, I think there's interpretation and perception to every fact, right? Because we give meaning to everything we see. A meal could be good or bad. Also you have the problem of time, because there's snapshots of time. So if I tell you guys I was an a-hole, right? Well, I've been an a-hole tons of times in my life. I always said one of the most powerful things you can do is illuminate the fact that, you were an a-hole. Because at any time in somebody's life, no matter who you are, Mother Teresa down, you were an a-hole at one time or not. You know what Jesus's brothers say about him? Right? Come on now. It's a snapshot. So I always have said the safest thing I tell people is, I used to be an a-hole. So then if somebody says, Kevin comes up to Alan and says, oh, I love Dave Meltzer, he's amazing, because of his snapshot with Dave Meltzer, Alan would be like, no, man, he's an a-hole. I went to high school with him. And he's like, I know, he talks about that, but that's what makes him so great, is he talks about his transformation and what he's learned, et cetera. It doesn't matter. It's like a blanket, because these are snapshots. So the truth is love. Your potential is the truth, but any fact has meaning and perception given by the owner. So that's their truth. It's not like love.
Wow. So speaking of perception, I was driving down here and I had this thought pop in. I don't know how to make this into a question, Dave, so hopefully you can just go with it.
Yeah.
So I was always kind of a serial pessimist.
Really?
Believe it or not, yeah. I called myself a realist. Alan was always a serial optimist. But for him, his optimism often is real, and my pessimism often was real. So I guess, is that me setting an intention and then finding it? And that's changed now. I'm way more of an optimist than ever. What's your take on those three?
I'm grateful Dave was shocked that you were a pessimist.
I know, I appreciate that also.
Yeah. Well, look, man, this is the key to life. You can't find outside of you what you can't find inside of you. There's love, light, and lessons in everything. So if you're going to focus in on what's missing, what you don't like, what you don't want, or what other people want, that's pessimism. And that's your reality. If you're a toptimist like Alan and I, you're going to find that in everything, right? Viktor Frankl, to me, Man's Search of Meaning, is such an important book. I use food as the best analogous situation to this. There's certain foods you walk by and you literally are attracted to it. Oh my God, that looks delicious. How can something look delicious? Delicious is an aspect of your taste. But it shows you the meaning of life, because you have a quantum attraction, a meaning, a remembrance, a recollection, a reminding of that food somewhere. And so when you see like this, burrito or a hot dog or a piece of pizza or a green drink, certain people are like, oh my gosh, I want that. Why? Because there's love, light, and lessons in everything. And their frequency is tuned into, just like a radio station, the pizza. Some like the pepperoni, some like the Hawaiian, some like the veggie. But they're tuned into it, right? They wouldn't have all those up there. But the truth is that Kevin, with his previous mindset, still could find the light, the love in pepperoni, even though he only loved Hawaiian. He could. If he changed his mindset, if he changed and gave meaning to pepperoni and took the time to do so, he could love pepperoni as much as the Hawaiian. Most people aren't willing to take that time. That's why I tell everyone, with the activity you get paid for, learn and study to love what you do. The same as you would learn and study the pepperoni over the Hawaiian. Even though innately you want to be a professional football player. Oh my God, I've carried a football since I was 5. You didn't have to force me to go to practice, but you did have to force me to study Spanish every day. Like, I used to laugh when my mom brought this up to me as an educator, a PhD in education. She said, why is it you can play football 5 hours after school and I have to pull you off the street to stop playing and practicing, but I got to pull your teeth out to study Spanish for 15 minutes a night? Why is that? Is there any difference? Is there any difference in the vibration, the light, the love, and the lessons in Spanish? Only for my meaning. Because there's someone out there that loves Spanish. You've seen them. They've been in our classes. They sit at the front of the class and they're like, hola, ¿qué pasa? ¿Por qué no comes la comida, amiga? Ven aquí, por favor. And you're like, whoa, how'd they do that? Because they have a quantum nature. Most people are too lazy to take the time to learn to love Spanish if they don't love it already. I have learned to do that. Powerful. I'm taking the time on this answer, Kev, because powerful if you can learn to love, like Viktor Frankl, a fish head in dirty water.
I appreciate
Imagine having the mindset to love, not just survive, love fish head in dirty water. the same as the pepperoni or the Hawaiian pizza.
Dave, I listen to Viktor Frankl's book before bed, like regularly, probably at least 3 nights a week. It's one of my favorite books of all time. And I think that
That's why you're a toptimist.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I actually bought it for my girlfriend for, I bought her the whole leadership series. That was the first
I'm
one.
surprised she doesn't leave you, dude. You buy her like exercise equipment and Viktor Frankl books. Like, have you ever heard of lingerie? Let's get real, bro.
Dave, I appreciate you. If you met her, you'd understand. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what do you believe is the most common limiting belief that people carry? Limiting belief that limits them.
Most common limiting belief?
Yeah.
Worthiness by far. Most people don't think they're worthy of what they dream of or what they have. And it causes a self-deprecating spiral, self-sabotage, triggers to the egos, the need to be separate, inferior, superior. Believe it or not, when you don't feel worthy, you have to project your insecurity and feel superior.
Right.
Angry, anxious, frustrated, worried, guilty, resentful, and offended. All of those are triggered by the fact that you don't feel worthy.
What do you believe is the most common root cause of unworthiness? Do you believe it's early childhood? Go ahead.
No, it's easy. It's the reason people don't feel worthy is they don't know what they're connected to. They're worried about what's missing, what other people want for them. They think somehow that they have to go over, under, and through a mountain. They don't understand that God walks with it. The person, the thing, God, Buddha, Joseph, Jesus, Joseph, Buddha, walk with you. You are made and created from and through. Recollect it. Remember it. Think about these words. Recollect who you are. Remind. What does that mean? Take your mind and know what it's collected to. Remember. These are uniting words to what? The greatest source of light, love, and lessons. And if you knew what walked with you and through you and in you at all times, you would be more than worthy. And all that you desired would come through you for others, because you would have no fear that there wasn't more coming. The whole basis of abundance, the expansion and growth and acceleration that occurs only when you realize my will is to clear the interference between me and what I am reminded, recollected, and remembered through and from.
Do you believe that one of the reasons some people don't aspire to a brighter future is because of this unworthiness?
Absolutely. Worse, they self-sabotage themselves. So they're so afraid of the light that exists in them. They're afraid to liberate their own light, and they're afraid that that won't liberate other people's lights and elevate other people to elevate themselves. They hold it back, thinking that somehow they're protecting themselves and others from this great source that sits within them.
I have someone in my life who I want to help, who I believe I could help. And when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Do you have any advice for someone who wants to be an inspiration to someone specific who might not be ready? Is there a way to be proactive in that?
Only by planting seeds under that tree that you may never sit under. You're planting seeds. It may not be your vibration that waters it, grows it, accelerates it, fertilizes it. Remember, spend your time on open minds, open hearts, and open hands. If somebody is a gatekeeper, a closed mind, a closed heart, and closed hands, all you can do is plant seeds. You cannot force it to grow with you or through you or from you. And so what you want to do is make sure that you can identify people who have closed minds, closed hands, and closed hearts, because it takes 1,000 times minimum the energy to re-engineer or motivate or inspire a closed mind, a closed heart, and closed hands than it does one person that has an open mind, an open heart, and open hands.
My goodness. Is that why you help us so much?
Yeah, of course. Of course. From the day I met you, when you flipped over a bed in a hotel room just to accommodate me for a podcast, and you were so willing to learn, your hearts were wide open to me. I felt so much love and connectivity. Your hands were open. Whatever I wanted, you guys would do for me. And of course, you had open minds. You only were sponges wanting to learn. You wake up early to do this with me from day one. You respected, the effort that I gave and the time that I would do. And most importantly, you listened and learned, and you are achieving. And my heart sings every time I see you in the green room there. I'm like, my boys are kicking butt. They are growing, accelerating, and learning. And I hope that I have somehow liberated them to show their unbelievable light. That's exactly why I do what I do with you guys. And so many people, because of the community that we have built, this is their favorite podcast, right? This is my favorite office hours every other week. This is my favorite office. Jim McKelvey, right? I don't know if you guys saw him here. Jim McKelvey is the founder of Square, $100 billion market cap, right? I loved him on. A very stimulating conversation. But in the back of my head, I was like, man, I can't wait to see Kevin Allen. This is going to be fun because I learn and grow so much myself.
Likewise, Dave, the last however many years it's been, I know you've seen a shift in me, but I've also seen a shift in you, and you've done so very much for us. I have one more question, if I may.
Sure.
You were talking about acceleration. Something that we say on the team a lot is we have momentum. Can you explain what momentum actually is? Because to me, it's more of a feeling than a deeper understanding.
Momentum is the enjoyment of the consistent, persistent pursuit of your potential. It aggregates and accelerates upon itself. It compounds itself. Momentum builds and builds and shifts only through the enjoyment of the consistent, persistent pursuit of your potential. So whatever the objective is, the milestone that you're looking to surpass, you will see that momentum is the aggregate of 2 turns to 4, turns to 8, turns to 16, turns to 32. And within the context of that aggregation, we can't put a complete stable system on it. So what it really looks like, see, in the long run, it takes 90% of the effort to get to 25% of the way there. Momentum's true this way too, but it's not linear. It doesn't mean that momentum wise, your energy today is 2, next year it's 4, you're right. Well, what happens is it's, 2, and then it goes down to 1, and then 3, and it's kind of like watching the market. You can play that game if you want, but in the end, it's prospecting energy. So in the end, like crypto for me, I bought 100,000 shares of a crypto coin at 11 cents, and I told my wife, she said, are you gonna sell it because it went way up? I said, no, I bought it for Miles. So Miles is even going to tell me, when he's 50 years old, Dad lost 11 grand, trying to help build a legacy, or my dad's a goddamn genius. He made me 11 million, 11 billion, or whatever it's going to be worth. But I could have bought and sold it and made 10 grand, 80 grand, 10 grand, paid taxes on it, worried about it. No, that's what we do with momentum, right? Setbacks, mistakes. Remember, combined with that aggregate effect of momentum is the ultimate GPS. See, GPS guides momentum. What does that mean? Faith is the ultimate GPS. So as you're building momentum, sometimes you get a flat tire, sometimes you miss an exit, sometimes you end up at the donut shop, not the gym. But that faith as a GPS is going to put you and reroute you back to where that milestone is. But the better part of faith as a GPS, if you learn lessons and follow gratitude, forgiveness, and accountability, live an inspired life, recollect, remind, and remember, you know what's going to happen? It's going to be a super GPS faith. Not only will it reroute you when you miss the exit, make a mistake, have a failure or a setback, not only will it reroute you, but even better, it'll change your destination to somewhere better, even if you don't think it's better. Because momentum will allow you to do that in the aggregate compound acceleration that it happens, just like building an audience.
My goodness, Dave. Do we have some more time?
I'll give you one more question. Is that cool? And then I'm going to go take my non-negotiable. I'm going to work out.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Wheels up.
All right. I've got a bunch of things written here.
All right.
Okay. You just talked about investments, and I try to explain this to my clients. So when you're going to invest in a company, there are certain fundamentals you look at that are present now to statistically gauge the probability of future success. AKA, if I buy Apple today, most likely Apple will go up in value because of XYZ. Whether that's gross revenue, net revenue, leadership, blah, blah, blah. When it comes to human beings and understanding the statistical probability of their success, what character traits specifically do you think are the most important? One that I've come across recently is someone's relationship to adversity. We had someone come on our show and there was a technical issue and it messed up her entire speech. And she literally redid the entire thing within 5 minutes after almost crying. And I was like, Kev, she will win. She will succeed because she didn't lose momentum through adversity. What do you specifically look at when it comes to the statistical probability of someone being successful?
6 things. 1, their skills, right? If their skills are not aligned with, synergistic, or supplementary to their idea or their venture or their journey, not going to work. Knowledge. I look at their knowledge of what they know aligned with, synergistic, or supplementary to the venture or journey, and the knowledge of who they know to help them, because that'll be an accelerant, right? The easiest and fastest way to get to where you want to be is if they know someone that's already there that can give them the directions or the help or do it for them. So skills, knowledge, and then what you just mentioned is very important, desire. I look for someone that must be what they can be, because I know they're never quit. Someone that must be what they can be, the Michael Jordans, the Kobe Bryants, you can cut them from their sophomore basketball team. That ain't going to stop them. 90% of the kids who get cut from a high school basketball team quit. The other 10% will be extremely successful in their life. They may not be in basketball, but in life, because they must be what they can be. Skills, knowledge, and desire. And then we discuss the other 3 components that I look for earlier: an open mind, an open heart, and open hands. If they have those 6 components, I guarantee that entrepreneur will be successful. The skills, knowledge, and desire aligned with, synergistic, and supplementary to the venture or the journey that they're on will make sure they're in the right place. The open heart, the open mind, and the open hands will make sure that they're successful on that journey, because they're capable of succeeding.
Cool. Dave, thank you so very much. As always, all the love in the world for you. We're so grateful.
Anytime, my friends. You are the greatest students to have. Thank you for bringing the best out in me. And you have done that for years. I look forward to our next call in a couple weeks. I know that everyone listening, and now it's getting to be a lot of people, they love it. And so I appreciate you guys taking the time and being such great students. Pay attention to and give intention to the coincidences you want. Be kind to your future self, especially my friends Kevin and Alan with Next Level University. Thank you, boys.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Enjoy your workout.
I will. Perfect. I'm on the road in 2 minutes.
Talk soon.
All right. Matt, Naftali still hanging out in the green room, learning something, I hope. Hopefully he'll be feeding us some great people. Remember, tomorrow's training is at 6 a.m. We got almost 50,000 people registered. We have Clubhouse rocking and rolling, IG live. I go live every day, including today at 8 a.m. Pacific time from the road on my way to Cabo San Lucas. You can take vacation every day and still be productive, accessible, and gracious to all that you know. Most importantly, everyone, be kind to your future self and do good deeds. Thank you, everyone. Bye.